Good evening and welcome. Tonight I want you to do something for me before we begin. Turn off the lights, put your headphones on, and let the world outside the room recede until the only thing left is the small pool of light where you sit. If you like being visited by stories that crawl under your skin, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so the dark knocks on your door at the same hour next week. This story is about something people call the Rake. Some will tell you it's a modern internet thing, a single terrible photograph, a creepypasta that took hold and grew. Others will tell you it's older, a shadow with a name, a presence that slips across continents and centuries. Tonight I'm not going to give you proofs or dates. I'm going to tell you what people have remembered seeing, hearing, and not being able to forget. Consider this a warning whispered through a half-closed door. Listen carefully because the thin parts of the story are where the danger hides. It begins in the trees. Imagine the sun simply folding away and the woods changing their mood from warm to guarded. The branches press together like hands. The leaves hush into a thin paper sound. And the ground, the floor of the world, lies littered with old things. Dead leaves, brittle twigs, the small skeletons of summers. You step lightly, trying not to bruise the silence, and you notice every crack underfoot. You mark each sound so you can tell them apart from the other noises. A whisper over there, a small snap to your left. You catalog them because you want to know which sounds are yours. And then there's another sound you didn't make, behind you. Not a footfall, but a fumble. Slow, patient, like a thing testing whether sound will betray it. You turn, the light is failing, and you catch a single glimpse. A figure hunched at an odd angle, moving like an animal that learned to mimic humanity and failed. Skin as pale as an empty page, almost hairless. Limbs folded where they should be straight. Eyes, two bright orb-like things, catch the fading sun and look straight at you. They don't blink. One glimpse is enough. One look is all it takes to change how nights feel forever. You run. Your speed is the only real defense. Your breath is a machine of panic now. It stutters and drives your legs harder. The sound behind you quickens in time with your footfalls. And when you turn again, because you must know the thing that follows, you see it for a moment more. Its crawl is a sick, quick thing, animal and grotesquely human at once. It moves like it is built to wedge itself into the spaces where sleep is supposed to be safe. Not everyone who has ever seen the Rake ran away. Not everyone survived. For some, the encounter was a single terror, a night that was a clean cut across a life. For others, the visits came in waves, like an old wound refusing to scar. There are fragments, journals, a sailor's log, a letter. Snippets passed down through time, all of them holding the same bruise of fear. I'll tell you 4 of those fragments now. Hear them as whispers in the attic of your mind. One letter, dated by hand to a year-long past, reads like a man unraveling. He writes, "Once I awoke and felt his presence. Once I awoke and saw his form. Once again I awoke and heard his voice, and looked into his eyes. I cannot sleep without fear of what I might next awake to experience. I cannot ever wake. Goodbye." Imagine writing your last words and every line is about the ache of not closing your eyes. A journal translated across time repeats itself in a trembling rhythm. I have experienced the greatest terror. I see his eyes when I close mine. They are hollow, black. They saw me and pierced me. His wet hand. And then the handwritten script stumbles into nonsense, like a pen that cannot hold on to sense. A mariner's log, rolling sea spray across its pages, puts it plainly. He came to me in my sleep. From the foot of my bed, I felt a sensation. He took everything. We must return to England. We shall not return here again at the request of the Rake. Picture sailors hauling their anchor and leaving a place because the thing in the night asked them not to stay. And finally, the most recent account, fresh enough that the edges still sting. It begins like many of these stories begin. A family returning from a holiday, exhausted, settling into the soft amber of late night. The children are put to bed. The parents sink into sleep. At 4 a.m, the mother wakes. She thinks her husband is up. She reaches and wakes him by accident. He gasps, pulls his legs from the end of the bed as if something had brushed them. His reaction is raw and animal. He buries his head in his arms and says nothing. In that half-breath of dark, the mother sees it. At first she thinks the creature is a man, then a large, hairless dog, then nothing that should exist at all. Its body is wrong, twisted, collapsed like an accident of joints. It is silent. For a moment she wonders if it is hurt. There is a brief, terrible human thought. Maybe we should help. Instead it moves. Quick and ugly, it scrambles along the mattress, sliding its limbs in a way that makes the joints look like they were made for crawling rather than walking. It stops less than a foot from the husband's face. For a suspended stretch of seconds, the creature simply looks at him. There is no sound. Time stretches like a pulled thread. Then its hand, long, pale, wet, rests on his knee. A touch so small and intimate you would think it meant mercy. The thing turns and bolts down the hallway toward the children's rooms. She screams for the light, a pure human scream aiming to stop something impossible. She flips the switch. For the briefest moment, the hallway is lit and he is crouched there, hunched like a fallen tree, his skin slick with dark red. He turns his head slowly. The light finds the face of a child on the floor, a child who had been grievously hurt. The little girl manages one last word before slipping from the world. He is the Rake. The husband drove into a lake that night, frantic and broken, and did not survive. The mother fled with the son, a hollow of someone trying to carry the pieces of herself to safety. Afterwards, the story should have been easy to record, to publish, to file away in the neat folder labeled strange but explainable. But instead, things fray. The local paper did not publish. Video news did not follow up. Records get lost in odd ways. People's memories are full of holes. And yet the mother did something very human and very stubborn. She looked for others. She found names, others who had seen similar things, threads leading back through years. She put a small digital recorder by her bed and let it spin, night after night, while she sifted through the small, normal sounds of sleep. Rustling, murmurs, the soft scuff of blankets. After weeks of brittle checking, she found a clipped, shrill voice on the tape. She did not let anyone else hear it. Listening to it brought the whole night back. The hand on the knee, the inch of quiet between heartbeats, the soft, intelligent tilt of a head that knew the shape of a life. She said this voice was like other voices she'd heard before in fitting fragments, the same cadence, the same inhuman pitch. And that idea that a thing could visit, speak, and be remembered is the part that chills me now. Not the sight itself, but the way it lodges inside memory, like a splinter that reminds you of something every time you brush your palm. Let's pause here. Imagine waking at night and finding a pale thing at the foot of your bed. Imagine it placing a hand on your knee. Tell me in the comments, what would you do? Freeze? Fight? Try to speak? Or run knowing there's no certainty you'll get out? People will offer explanations. Some say sleep paralysis, the ancient, terrifying phenomenon where the brain wakes before the body and hallucinates presence. That fits some details. The paralysis, the sense of pressure, the vivid dream sensation. Other people reach for folklore, pale men, shadow creatures. The old warnings parents told kids about wandering into the woods. In different cultures, there are things with similar habits. Sly watchers that visit sleepers. Beings who take not for hunger, but for attention, for curiosity, for something worse we don't have a name for. But even if you fold this story into the neat clothes of sleep science or folklore studies, there is a harder kernel to swallow, the emotional footprint. People who encounter the Rake speak of voices that haunt their recordings, of children who whisper its name and then stop breathing, of adults who cannot sleep because they are waiting for a shape to enter their room. The fear here is not merely that something is out there. It's that something quietly knows how to come to us when we are smallest and most defenseless. Another question to consider. Send this into your thoughts as a slow, turning idea. What if it isn't hungry for flesh? What if it's interested in attention, in reaction? Some of the accounts read as if the creature is not hunting in the violent sense, but collecting moments, sharp little plucks of terror. It sits, it looks, it places a hand. A life changes. If that's true, then the danger is not only the creature itself, it's the way it turns our intimate spaces, beds, bedrooms, sleep, into stages for its acts. You might be thinking now, this is absurd, a made-up monster. But you and I both know people love stories that make them feel something real. So let me ask again. Can you imagine hearing that shrill voice recorded from your own bedroom? Can you imagine rewinding a tape, listening at high speed, the voice scratching like nails on a blackboard? Would you post it? Would you keep it secret and live with the knowledge alone? If you're still with me, then hear the final part. The woman I told you about, the mother, has not seen the creature since. She sleeps in a room with locks and alarms now, a room that never quite feels like hers. But she knows it has been into her room while she slept. She does not say how she knows. Maybe the memory woke her. Maybe she found small marks on a pillow. Whatever it is, she lives under the certainty that one night she will open her eyes and find those hollow, unblinking orbs looking down at her from the foot of the bed. So that is the rake as the stories handed to us. A pale, liminal thing that visits the quietest hours, moves with a movement that is almost human and almost not, presses its hand to the knees of sleeping people, and, sometimes, leaves a trail of ruined families and broken nights. Before I close, I want you to think about the ways we deny our fears. We tell ourselves it's only the wind or it was a dream, because the alternative is to live with the knowledge that the edges of our lives are permeable. We like to keep our bedrooms as the last private place where logic and safety rule. Stories like these ask us to accept that privacy can be breached without dramatic force. Just a soft, inquisitive hand, a whisper, a small tilt of the head. Now, one last time, if you were there, in that hallway with the light blinking, and you saw him crouched in the shadow, dripping red, turning to the child and hearing that single word, Rake, what would you do? And tell me, do you think this is a creature that needs belief to exist? Or does it live in the cracks regardless of whether anybody speaks its name? If you want more accounts like this, longer nights, slower reveals, voices on tape that make the hair on your arms climb, leave a like, subscribe, and share this with someone who thinks they can stay awake through anything. And if you have a story, if you ever saw something at the foot of the bed, tell it in the comments. Keep it short, keep it honest, and know that other people are listening. The rake does not ask permission to enter. It does not bow. It arrives with nothing but the quiet it brings to a room, like a current under the sea. It tests the boundaries of sleep and learns where to touch. The scariest part is that whether this thing is a hallucination, a pale menagerie of folklore, or a visitor from something we don't yet understand, the result is the same. Someone will wake and find their world changed. So tonight, when you lie down, pull your blanket high. Listen to the small, ordinary noises and try to convince yourself they are all that they are. Pray. If you pray, that sound stays ordinary. But if you do hear a voice or find a cold, small hand on your knee in the dark, remember what you heard here, and remember one more thing. Names have power, but fear has agency. Sleep if you can, but know that somewhere in the hush between breaths and beside the edge of the bed, something patient waits. It waits for the light to fail. It waits for a single glimpse that will be enough. Good night. Don't forget to like, subscribe, ring the bell, and share this story if you dare. And tell me in the comments, was this real to you or just a dream you enjoyed? Either way, sleep with one eye open.